This is an important election, and there are a lot of people running. I think a lot of people, one, don't know everybody that's running, and two, don't even know when the primary is coming up or anything. So thank you for sitting down with me, and tell us real quick, why are you running for Congress, and what is it that you want to bring to Washington?
Well, I've been successful in business for the past 40 years. I've built businesses all over the country and Mississippi as well. And I've attained some success. And you just look at our politicians right now. Look what's going on in Congress. Look what we got. You know, elections have consequences. We're stuck with Biden for another 2 years. You know, look at our congressmen. The corruption is something that really gets me because, you know, there's so much apathy out there against corruption. People don't care if their politicians corrupt. Yeah. Not everybody, but a lot of people don't. I mean, I get people on my Facebook that post when I put something negative about Palazzo on there. They'll post something like, "Oh, why don't you just put out your positions and not worry about Palazzo?" Well, that's one of the reasons I ran, is because before I ran last time, I researched him and found out he was a crook. So I filed the FEC charges against him. FBI investigated him, and they found 6-0 Republicans and Democrats that he committed campaign violations. So, you know, I just don't understand the fact that, and again, it's funny because most journalists don't take it up. They won't do anything about it. They won't say nothing about it. Mm-hmm. You know, the only time they take it up is when something happens. Other than that, you know, it's just nobody interviews him. Nobody sits down and talks to him. Well, and I've challenged him to a debate like 50 times. And let him come in front of the constituents and explain, well, if you're not guilty, let's go over it. I know all the things that I show you did wrong. Mm-hmm. Why don't you explain to me and explain to the people of Mississippi where I'm wrong?
Right. And so corruption is actually my first question. There's a congressman. He's a sitting congressman currently. He's running for Senate. His name's Mo Brooks. I don't know if you've seen much of his stuff. Yep. He talked about a month or so ago now. He talked about this pay-for-play scheme, if you will. That, and I'm not certain of all the specifics, but essentially, if you want a committee assignment, if you want a chairmanship, you have to pay $1 million or whatever the price tag is to the party. Right. That fee is often, if not always, paid by the lobbyists. Yep. And then in exchange, obviously, the congressman does what the lobbyist says. Right. Like I said, that's just one example. I'm sure there are countless examples. But so talk to me about. It sounds like corruption was a big part of why you entered the race. Talk to me about not only why is it important to get rid of corruption, but what can we do about corruption?
Well, to tell you the truth, that's why you need strong congressmen, because you got people that got to go there that aren't looking to have a career, not looking to enrich themselves. And I've had a successful career. I'm not looking to make more money. I actually left a job a company I built up to $1 billion company when I was at my peak, and left in 2000 to come back home here to raise my daughters. So if it was about money, had I stayed there, I'd be worth $40-50 million right now. But I gave up $40-50 million to come down here. We already, I've already had those perks. We had private jets. We had all the best tickets and stuff. Just didn't impress me. Yeah. I still wanted my daughters to grow up down here in Mississippi. So I left there and came back down. I was in Seattle for like 20 years. I grew up in Picayune, Mississippi, dirt poor. So I know the only way to become successful is to work hard. And I have a great work ethic. For over 40 years, I've been working 7 days a week, and I still do today. Mm-hmm. So that's why, you got to get the right people there. You got to get people that, they're not going there to get rich. I mean, I think we need to get rid of the retirement out of Congress. I mean, again, it should be an honor to go there and serve, not a career. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, they have all these nuances to take, and, if we get this money from you, you get a committee's assignment here. And I can tell you, if I get up there, I might not ever be on a committee just because of the fact that I'm not going to play those games. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to take and vocalize them. I'm going to tell people, look, I can't get on that committee because I won't give them $1 million. Yeah. And again, this is just a money laundering scheme anyway. And it's not just in the federal government, it's in the state government too. Mm-hmm. If you go look at, and I won't bring any names up, but you You go look at every senator in the state, and if they've been there for over 2 terms, go look at their financials. You know, their financial disclosures will show that every one of them get money from the same people. Ingalls, Pfizer, Merck, Johnson & Johnson, a whole bunch of the pharmaceutical companies. You know, I know a popular senator that has 0 money that is in her account from a citizen. It's all PACs and lobbyists.
Oh, wow.
And then, again, you're talking about pay for play. I know another senator that gives $5,000 to $10,000 every year to Delbert Hoseman's campaign. Now, Delbert Hoseman's got like $2.6 million in his account. Why would you, as a senator, and I can tell you how hard it is to raise money, and you probably know that.
It's hard.
Yeah. So, I mean, why would you be giving money to Delbert Hoseman? What are you getting for that? And $5,000 to $10,000 at a time. And you can go through and you can look at, I've looked at other elected officials here in the state that, you know, the money they're bringing in is a little questionable. You know, they give themselves a loan for $29,000, pay back $33,000, pay off another loan that's not even on the books, pay for expenses of $38,000 with no listing of what it is. Mm-hmm. And there's no checks and balances. I talked to the ethics office up there, and they said, well, we don't do anything unless somebody reports it. So you don't look over any of that stuff till somebody reports it. Well, you know, who's going to report it unless, well, nobody, because if you go back to all these guys, you'll see the same thing.
Right.
I mean, it's just, the corruption is crazy. And, you know, and I like Tate Reeves, but when they did the election reform bill back in 2018, they exempted all the money you collected before 2018.
Imagine that.
And all that money came from PACs and lobbyists. Mm-hmm. So PACs and lobbyists were giving graft and retirement funds for our politicians here in Mississippi for years and made them millionaires. At the end of 2018, Tate Reeves had over $5 million in it. Mm. Delbert Hoseman's $2.6 million.
Yeah. Where'd
that money come from? PACs and lobbyists. So somehow or another, I think they have a lot more influence than we think they do. So, and there's a reason why they do that.
So is there? I mean, obviously, one can connect the obvious dots between somebody donating money versus, you know, how they theoretically would act. Right. Do you think the answer is some sort of harder prohibition on that type of thing, or is it something on the back end that needs to be done?
Well, I think it needs to be discussed. I think, you know, we need to look at all options. I mean, we need to have better reporting. I mean, there should be a committee or independent committee in federal or state that looks over that stuff. And you don't wait till somebody files it. You know, we should be doing that all the time. Mm-hmm. You know, Shad White, who I met, is a great guy, mm-hmm. and he's doing a great job. But like he said, we don't do anything till it's reported.
Yeah.
So even in his job, nobody's looking over that. And, you know, he's bringing back hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's probably just a small percentage we're losing. Mm-hmm. You know, the apathy about the money we throw away is what really gets me. Because in the federal government or the state government, they don't care.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I actually went to 3 different legislative or groups that had a senator and a congressman or a Senate representative come in and tell us the state of the legislator after the legislation. And I was just at one here last week. And, you know, we're fiscal conservatives as a Republican, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
Well, I listened to them speak, and they talked about how, you know, they spent all this money, where it all went, and they cut the taxes and stuff. And I listened to them for about an hour, and then afterwards, and of course they said, you know, we've got record revenues right now, everything's going great and stuff, you know, but we won't always have this. So I always wait till the end and then ask that question. It's like, you know, you're a fiscal conservative. You never once mentioned cutting spending anywhere. Mm-hmm. I said, do you guys have like something in the future you're looking at maybe cutting spending? Because even like you said, mm-hmm. you know, this revenue won't always be here. But you don't mention anything about cutting. Did you cut anything? No. And their response was, oh, well, you know, last time we had a downturn in the economy, you know, we were able to cut and save. Okay, but, you know, wouldn't it be a little bit better to do that in advance?
Yeah.
But the trouble is, just like with most politicians, the money's there, you spend it, everybody's happy, you get reelected.
Sure.
we'll look at next year. I mean, to me, it's crazy.
Kicking the can down the road.
Oh yeah.
Well, so my next question, and you talked a little bit about the state. My next question is about a state program, the Mississippi Medical Cannabis Act.
Right.
Obviously, running for Congress, that would be the specifics of the state program would be less in your jurisdiction, if you will. But right now there's a lot of states legalizing it, whether it be for recreational, some for medical, as we did. And there's kind of this purgatory gray legal area right now.
Right.
I'm working for, and working with a lot of these folks, and there's a lot of unnecessary anxiety and things that could potentially go wrong because of, this gray area jurisdiction. Right. So talk to me about that. What do you feel is the federal government's role, not only in Mississippi's program, but in cannabis programs around the nation?
Well, again, I think the cannabis program is a state program. I mean, I believe, like most things, we need to get rid of some of those 288 departments we got up there, because it shouldn't be their job to dictate to us. If the ballot initiative got 68% votes for legalizing medical marijuana, federal government should have nothing to do with that.
Right.
That's a state issue, and we should leave it to the state to decide that. I do believe that, I think, like hemp, it's not pot, but we should start growing hemp here.
Yeah, I agree.
Because we don't need to be the last guy to get into it. We've got farmland that's not being used right now. Why don't we legalize hemp growing and get into that? Because they're making everything out of hemp now.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be the last guy to get into it. I know in Mississippi we look at stuff as like, well, it's a drug, but it's not. It's a manufactured product. So
it's about hemp.
I don't understand why
Yeah.
we haven't got into that yet.
Right.
But on the medical deal, I mean, the trouble I see, which I saw in California, when California first legalized pot for medicine, I was down in California walking on the beach, on the boardwalk. There was tents all up the beach. There was a guy in scrubs in all these tents, and it was like, there'd be a sign out there: "Do you have a headache? Does your foot hurt? Come on in, we'll get your prescription."
Yeah.
So, depending on how you do it, as soon as you legalize it for medicinal, it's can easily morph into legalization.
Recreational.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, and I think right now there's this big purgatory because there's marijuana is still classified.
Right. Class 1.
Class 1. Yeah, I think it is. And so there was I'm not certain of all the details, but there was a bill that passed the House, if I'm not mistaken, that did have some sort of legalization. I'm not certain of it, but so essentially what you're saying is you would be in favor of dialing back the federal government's role in that.
I mean, again, this is how dumb politics are.
Yeah.
I mean,
to me, it's a 10th Amendment issue.
Oh yeah.
So.
And the thing is that you've got the federal government that keeps it as a class 1, and yet you've got states legalizing it. So again, it's a state issue. Why is the federal government keeping it as a class 1? Now you've got all this cash out there that they can't even put into banks and stuff. If the state legalizes it or legalizes it for medicinal purposes, well, then let the state regulate that. It's not the federal government's job.
Yeah.
I'm one of those guys that wants the federal government in about as little stuff as possible.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't need to tell you everything that's gone on. Russia invaded Ukraine. Ukraine is not in NATO. There's talks about what is our role? Ukraine's
I can tell you, and again, this is why elections have consequences.
Sure.
Had Trump still been president, we wouldn't be in this issue right now. I mean, Russia never would have attacked Ukraine because Trump would have been strong enough and not worried about hurting their feelings or nothing. And again, it probably would have been a little bit like with North Korea, where they said, well, I got a nuclear weapon. Well, Trump I got a whole bunch of nuclear weapons.
Yeah. So,
again, it's the person that's in the office. We should have sanctioned the heck out of him before he get started. But, this is the trouble with elections having consequences. We got this guy here he's not a foreign expert at all. But yet, he's trying to not do too much. And I agree with us helping out Ukraine, but I also agree with the Trump doctrine where NATO is over there, and NATO and the EU is over there, and it's in Europe. They should be leading. We should be helping wherever we can, as much as we can. But, this is something where they should take the lead. Germany just finally okayed giving weapons. The UK's over there. France is over there. You got big countries over there that can support this and take care of it themselves. So they're the ones that are buying the oil from Russia. So they're the ones that have the clout. They put us in the middle of it because we always get in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't be the lead. We should be the backup.
But do we need to get involved with everything?
No, we don't.
Because there's a lot of countries that get involved, that get invaded around the world, and a lot of people that are oppressed by foreign countries or even their same countries. So I guess my question is, if the United States military, United States National Defense is there for United States national defense, at what point does a conflict on the other side of the world or wherever become our national interest?
Well, unfortunately, no matter where it's at in the world, it is somewhat in our interest no matter what, And the number one interest we have here is the civilian deaths and children dying. Mm-hmm. I'm 100% for doing whatever we got to do to stop, the innocent victims dying. Mm-hmm. Because again, we are America. We shouldn't just let them commit genocide there. Mm-hmm. But as far as again, we shouldn't have the lead role. Germany's a big country, got a lot of money and a lot of power with Russia. Yep. They could be putting the pressure on it. The EU, they're talking about getting rid of Russia oil by the end of the year. So you're financing the own war against the money that we're putting up to. It's another one of those things that it's the military industrial complex. We're supplying the money here. They're supplying the arms. We're supplying the arms here. They're supplying the money. Mm-hmm. It's stupid, but that's the way we've always done it. Mm-hmm. And again, even the money we're putting in right there, it's like I tell everybody, says, we don't have the money. Yeah. We're $30 trillion in debt. They've printed out. There's half the money in circulation today has been printed out in the last 2 years.
So yeah, and that's insane, and I'm coming to that. But I think that's where foreign policy. I feel like we need to be very specific. So it sounds like what you're saying is that the United States will have some sort of responsibility for major atrocities, but the way that we've kind of entangled alliances, if you will, has made it to where it kind of confuses the issue.
Well, it does. It confuses it. How can you supply weapons, and this is Europe, how can you supply weapons to a country that's fighting a country that you're buying all your oil from?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Day one, you should have taken a stance and said, all right, we'll cut that oil off. Of course, the bad part is with Biden as president, we don't have the natural gas and the LNG to send to him because he cut us off. Mm-hmm. So, we could supply them. We could supply the world with liquid natural gas, but not with Biden as president.
We've printed how much of the 50% of all money in circulation, and I feel like people don't fully understand the implications of that. That just printing money out of thin air with no value attached to it devalues your currency. So talk to me about that. What in the world is going on, and how do we get a handle on it?
This is what I say all the time on all these forums and stuff. We could balance our budget. If you go and just do a study and say like Medicaid, we lose $80 billion a year in Medicaid, fraud, waste, and abuse. And we report it every year. We lose $80 billion. Mm-hmm. And then we do nothing about it.
Yeah.
You don't enforce it. You don't try to get it back. And then you report it again next year. 60% of all births in Mississippi are paid for by Medicaid.
60?
60%.
Wow.
We don't have 60% poverty. Arkansas, it's 75 or 78%. Medicaid's only supposed to be paying for people that need it. Mm-hmm. And a short story is a friend of mine who's president of a bank, makes a lot of money. He had a kid back 5 or 6 years ago. And when he went to get his kid from the doctor, which, he has great insurance and stuff, tries to get the kid from the hospital and pay his bill. She goes, oh, don't worry about it. It's already taken care of. He goes, what do you mean? He says, well, we put it on Medicaid. He says, I'm not on Medicaid. And he says, well, we put everybody's on Medicaid. And like he says, I've got insurance. No, put it on my insurance. So they paid for the insurance stuff. He said he got a notice 2 weeks later that his Medicaid was canceled. You know, I mean,
so they signed him up for it and then can't. Oh,
yeah. Again, we do this on all areas. I mean, Medicare, Social Security. My brother-in-law, he actually works for the Social Security office, and he's a higher up in there.
Mm-hmm.
And he says the biggest problem with that is, disability. There's millions of people on disability.
Mm-hmm.
And he says once they petition and get on disability, the only way you can get them off is going back in front of that judge to get them off. And so if you don't and they don't have the people out there doing that. So that means once you're on for life.
Mm-hmm.
And, they don't do anything about trying to get you off.
Yeah.
He says, some of these people are better, but we don't do anything to go get them off. I mean, Social Security, the IRS, fraud, waste, and abuse. I think I read that in 8 years they lose like $1.1 trillion.
Wow.
There's welfare fraud, $75 billion. I mean, you can go through everything, and there's loss.
Mm-hmm.
Fraud. I mean, even in Mississippi, like I said, Shad White's doing a great job getting a few $100 million back. Small percentage of what we're throwing away.
Mm-hmm. There's loss in every locality.
Right.
I mean, there's going to be some waste, and what you don't do is you don't turn a blind eye to it.
See, I'm from a business background. If I lost $1,000 last week, I'm gonna smash that hole. I'm not gonna lose it again this week.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we need business people in Congress. We need business people in office. Is because you come there with that common sense that well, this doesn't work. Why would we lose this year? Lose it next year? 2 years ago? You fix the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to me like in Congress, they don't fix the problems.
Yeah.
They probably more or less exacerbate them.
Yeah. So is there a particular bill or a particular litmus test or anything that you would like to see done in Congress, or that you would yourself, like I said, would hold yourself to?
You mean on
like whenever a budget comes, whenever any type of spending bill comes, is there anything that says that if
I'm gonna vote no for everything?
Okay, just
know on it
out the gate.
What I think is, again, why do we have these bills with hundreds of different items in them?
Yeah.
Why don't we have a single issue bill? Voted up or down, single issue, you're over with.
Mm-hmm.
And another problem we have is that they'll pass 400 bills in Congress that never get taken up to the Senate. Mm-hmm. And we do it every year. Then they expire at the end and they repass them. Mm-hmm. And all they are for are to campaign on. I pushed this bill, or I passed this bill, but it never happened. Never went anywhere. It didn't pass. It didn't go to the Senate. It didn't pass. And didn't get signed by the president. Stephen Palazzo, who his girl doesn't like me at all, Michelle, I think her name is. We're at a thing in a forum in Lucedale. Mm-hmm. I gave that speech there, and I said that it's just show bills so you can campaign on them and stuff.
Right.
Well, she didn't like anything I had to say, but when she got up to speak, she goes, "Well, Stephen Palazzo just co-sponsored this bill that's going to rein in Biden, where he has to tell them where the illegals are going. He has to tell us up front, and we're not going to finance and stuff." And I raised my hand, and then she goes, "I didn't interrupt you, so don't interrupt me." I said, "Okay." So I waited till the end of her speech, and then I raised my hand. I said, "So is this like one of those show bills that I was just talking about?" He goes, "No. What do you think he's going to do up there?" And I said, "Well, because there's not a chance in hell that it's going to make it to committee. It'll never make it to the floor. Mm-hmm. No chance it's going to the Senate. And Biden's not going to sign something reining himself in. So you wasted time doing that bill. Except for you could campaign on it right now. I co-sponsored this bill." Okay. And where did it go? Have you heard of that bill yet?
No.
Have we reined in Biden anywhere?
No.
Gee, lo and behold, I guess it didn't happen.
Well, and that you're right, because there's so many times when and both sides do it. Whenever it's easy to rail against government when Barack Obama was president, or now that Joe Biden's president, but Trump was president, and all of a sudden, like you just said, we printed half the dollars that were ever in existence, and and half of that, a quarter of it was roughly from when Trump was in office. And so that, I think you're hitting the nail on the head of one of the things that frustrates myself and a lot of people about politics is that they'll see, well, I'll stomp and make a big deal when I know it ain't going to be able to get anywhere, but when it really is go time,
right?
For some reason we can't seem to get anything done.
Right, that's what I'm saying, and the reason why we don't is we keep electing the same old people. If we don't get people in there that have,
is it because that at some level, when you get to D.C., the Republicans and Democrats are on the same side? Because that's what it seems like.
I mean, to me, and I hate to say this, I've never voted anything but Republican my whole life, but they've turned it into where it's almost Republicans are like Democrat light. I mean, we're not cutting spending. Our deficits went up just as much under Trump as they did under Biden and Obama. Yeah. I mean, so again, and these stimuluses and stuff. I mean, how dumb is that? I make good money, and the first stimulus, me and my wife got a check. The government can't manage anything right. Why would you blast out checks to everybody? Of course, me and my wife, we gave them to charity, but the thing is a lot of people didn't. I mean, I know people that have a lot of money, so I'm just put it in my bank, But again, this is what's wrong with government. Let's just print that money, give it to everybody, and now everybody's happy.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like Biden. Oh, let's give everybody $100 extra a month to pay for their gas. How about we just make more gas? I mean, this is stupidity. I mean, I feel like Congress is like a clown car.
Yeah.
Because you just wait for the next clown to jump out.
Yeah. It's got to keep going.
It's the things they do, the things they say are nonsensical. I mean, they contradict each other. Like you said, Obama president, I believe this. Trump president, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
Well, I can guarantee you, if Biden's president and I don't want him to do something, and then Trump says he wants to do it, and I was against it under Biden, I'll be against it under Trump.
Yeah.
Because again,
it's called consistency.
Yes, consistency. Why don't more people do that? I mean, you look at Biden, even today with Roe v. Wade. This whole time as a senator, I'm not for Roe v. Wade. We need to send it back down to the states and stuff. Now all of a sudden, well, that MAGA crowd, which I'm a MAGA person, so I'm a MAGA crowd. They're the worst thing we've ever seen in history.
He hadn't read a lot of
flip-flopped off of 36 years in Senate. You've just flip-flopped in a day about how your opinion changed because conservatives changed it. Now, if that had been a liberal court and they'd have changed it, Biden would have been all for it. And that's the problem we got in America. I mean, there's no consistency where, if I'm against this as under Trump, I should be against it under Biden.
Yeah.
If I'm against it under Biden, I'll be against it under Trump.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's no different than like the budgets and stuff. Like I said, no is going to be what I be voting a lot on because I'm not going to vote for anything that funds Planned Parenthood, which of course won't be around in a few of these states pretty soon. But again, whatever I say I'm not going to do, I'm not going to do it. I was told that when you get there, Chris McDaniel told me, he says, when you get to Congress, the leadership will take you in the back room and tell you, look, you might have run against this, but you're going to have to vote for it. But don't worry, we're going to get you reelected.
Yeah.
See, that's not me.
I'll
be going like, well, gee, that's great, but no, I think I'll pass.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Because, again, I don't want to make a career out of this. I tell you what, if I got there and saw that I couldn't get stuff done, and that it was that big of a swamp, which I hope it's not that big that I can't get nothing done, I just wouldn't run again. I mean, I'm not there to get rich. I'm just there to hopefully get something done. And if I can't, I don't want to be there.
Over COVID, things were really scary at the beginning, and people wanted to do what they needed to do to help out, whether that mean keeping their distance from somebody or whatever the case. But it seemed like very quickly the CDC was able to manipulate and prey on people's fears and really overreach. So can you talk to me about the idea of any agency being able to create law through regulation, essentially?
Well, again, like I said, I believe that we're the only country in the world that monetized COVID. And if you look at it, we politicized it. Like somebody asked me in a forum the other day, is like, what would you learn from going forward from that? I told them, well, the bad part is you don't learn nothing. Because Trump was president, so everything he said was wrong. And then when Biden was president, everything he said that was the same thing as Trump, it was right. So again, it's a consistency, it's whoever's in office. Yeah. Ivermectin, Trump said that and got blasted all over the social media and stuff, and Democrats laughing at him and stuff. Well, my partner's a doctor in one of my businesses. And he told me that he's prescribed ivermectin to every patient that he had that had COVID.
Wow.
And not one of them ever went to the hospital, and they all got better within 24 hours.
Imagine that.
So we had treatments that we never used. When I got COVID, I went to my doctor. He goes, yep, you got COVID. I said, all right, what are we doing? Oh, nothing. If you get sicker, come on back. I'm like, that's not much of a treatment plan,
That's not what the TV's telling me.
So I'm like, wow, so we're not using any kind of treatment unless you go back. And then, you get sick, then they'll put you on treatment and put you on a respirator, which from what I heard, you don't want a respirator because you die. Mm-hmm. So, again, it's politicized so much that you don't know who's right, who's lying, who's telling the truth. And you can go back and the best way to do it is look at whatever Trump said that everybody hated and see if it's okay under Biden. Because that means that's something you could probably correlate together to say, like, well, it must have been right then.
Right.
But otherwise, they politicized it. We monetized it. We're the most state-of-the-art country in the world for sanitation. Mm-hmm. Most state-of-the-art country for our medical systems. So, and we came up with the vaccine first, mm-hmm. Put it out to our people. And yet, we're to believe that in the United States, lost 1/5 of all people to COVID. Where India, who has, 5 times more people than we do, they had half the number of people die. So, but in India, from what I understand, is when you called and said you thought you had COVID, they sent you out, somebody on a motorcycle came out with a little bag of treatment, and you took the stuff like hydrochloroquine, ivermectin, whatever it was that we weren't taking, remdesivir and stuff, and they treated it. Where us, it's like, no, don't treat it. Wait till you go to the hospital. And why is that? Well, because the hospital makes money on it. I'm not saying hospitals are bad. If you put money out there for them, they're gonna take it. My CPA for 22 years, he died in February, mm-hmm. and it was counted as a COVID death because he got COVID. But he had cancer of the liver, the kidney. He was eaten up by cancer. Mm-hmm. But when he died, he had COVID. So it was a COVID death. And that's the problem, is everything that, if they did an autopsy and you had COVID, well, you died from COVID. Mm-hmm.
Jumped out of a plane. And
got run over by a motorcycle, it was all COVID. And again, this is where transparency comes in.
Right.
We need transparency. We need to get politics out of it. Let our doctors give us the information. And I can tell you, I talked to my doctor, and I didn't take the vaccine. And my doctor said, well, you should take the vaccine. I said, why? It's because, that way you protect yourself. I said, from what? And he says, well, you won't get COVID or you won't go to the hospital and stuff. He said, we got 100 patients over in the hospital right now that have COVID. Mm-hmm. I said, how many of them had COVID before? He goes, we don't track that. I said, okay, why wouldn't you track that? I said, if you want me to take the vaccine, wouldn't it be smart to say, like, look, we got 100 people in the hospital over here, and 98 of them already had COVID. You should take the vaccine. I said, all right, well, that's logical. Okay, I'll take it. Mm-hmm. But why don't you track how many people had it and have natural immunity?
Right.
And my doctor, my partner doctor said the same thing. Carl,
That would make sense.
You got natural immunity. Don't take the shot. So, here you've got opposing opinions, and my partner that's a doctor is he's been a doctor for over 50 years. And he's way up. He's not here. He's in Houston. But, he's a very, very smart man. Mm-hmm. And from day one when this thing started, he's told me, Carl, start taking these vitamins right here, and that'll help you ward off this. And we took the vitamins. We still taking them.
Good.
And we got COVID one time. I was sick for 3 days. That was good. Mm-hmm. And I went and because I was campaigning, I went and got tested all the time. And I even got the blood test to see if I had antibodies. Mm-hmm. Massive antibodies every time. Not once did I not have the antibodies. Wow. So again, it's the misinformation. It's like anything to do with government. It's the misinformation. Mm-hmm. Give me the information. Let me make my own decision.
Sure.
Don't tell me this. You have to do this. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at what they've said from day one on these vaccines. This one vaccine will protect you. You can't get COVID if you got this.
They've constantly moved the goalpost.
Oh, now the second vaccine's really going to do it. Then the third. Now the fourth booster.
Now they're talking about a fifth, I guess.
Oh, yeah. And then,
it'll keep going.
How about the treatments? Why are we not putting nothing out there on the treatments? Mm-hmm. I heard that I think the government bought massive from this one pharmaceutical company these pills to treat COVID.
I think I did hear something about that.
I saw something about that. So, but you don't see them out there advertising that.
No.
They advertised you got to take the jab, but they didn't advertise, hey, I want some treatment. I'm not a conspiracy kind of guy. But there's so many questions that go unanswered.
Something doesn't add up.
No.
Doesn't add up. Well, that was all my questions. But is there anything particular that you wanted to discuss, or you wanted to just let the people know about yourself and your campaign?
Well, I think the one thing that's different from me than everybody else, like I told you before, we got a CPA, a lawyer, a machinist, 2 police officers, a banker, and then me, who's a businessman. And with my business background, I'm not an expert, but I know a lot about import, export, logistics, IT, warehousing, distribution, trucking, supply chain, food safety, USDA, FDA, management, labor, insurance.
All that red tape.
All that stuff. Because if you're a business person, you deal with that on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I created thousands of jobs. I built and ran a $1 billion company. Mm-hmm. So we had thousands of employees. You negotiated with banks. And, and again, like most people realize that, when you're talking about banks, if you have money, they'll loan you money.
Yeah.
If you don't have money, it's hard to get it. And the trouble is in banking, you have to understand how the procedures work and everything. Mm-hmm. And from my end, I deal with 2 or 3 banking organizations around here, and the banks don't have any choice. All the regulations they have to go through, which is one of the reasons why if I get there, I have a lot of banking friends that would advise me on how we can streamline this stuff a little bit better.
Good.
Because it's really, even when you have money, it's hard to get a loan from the bank. Mm-hmm. There's so many stipulations, and it's not the bank's fault, it's the regulations.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee you in 4 years of Biden, I'm sure there's going to be a whole lot more that we don't want to have to do, because they're regulating the heck out of everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. See Trump get reelected, he'll have that stack of regulations again. He's going to be cutting, which will make me happy.
Right. Absolutely. Good.
But besides that, I just don't understand the people that, Stephen Palazzo. I don't have anything against him, except for the fact that he really doesn't seem like he has much honor. When you are in trouble, and you are, most of the time you try to make amends and get through it as quick as possible.
Yeah.
Well, he's dragged this on for a couple of years already, and still dragging it on. And he's, he could easily get this over with. The evidence is humongous against him. He doesn't come out and explain it to anybody. It's one of those things that, well, if I don't talk, I don't got to worry about it. And unfortunately, it seems to be the way it is because, the full committee is not doing nothing about it. But as a congressman, you would hopefully have enough sense to know that, well, for one, I'm not going to quit hitting him.
Yeah.
I'll be going out after him long after this election's over. If he gets reelected, I'll still be going after him because I don't believe in corruption. As a matter of fact, I'll probably be going after other people too because it might be my new career is going after corrupt politicians. I'm actually thinking about I got a production staff. I'm actually thinking about possibly doing a 30-minute infomercial on corruption.
Oh, wow.
I'll take and spell the whole thing out so nobody has to ask me, well, what did Stephen do? What's the evidence? But, when he goes out and starts paying money back to his campaign, well, you admitted you did something wrong. When you go to your financial disclosure to Congress and you start changing it to amending it to match your narrative, which if you read the 47-page report, because I sent that to them as well, too, the fact that he was going back changing his financial disclosures. And the FBI said the same thing. He's going back changing his financial disclosures to match this. We can all see it.
Right.
But he changes all that. Well, again, you're admitting you're wrong. On it, the one that was really the funniest was his office in Gulfport. I looked at that when I first looked at it, and I thought, wow, all your other offices, you're paying $400 a month, $800 a month. One office in Gulfport, you're paying $6,000 a month to. I'm thinking like, well, where's this office at that it's $6,000? So I go, and it's in a neighborhood, and it's an old bank that was remodeled into an office. And then I looked to find out who owned it. Well, ended up, it was Stephen Palazzo's lawyer. So he's paying him $6,000 a month. I check out the market in that area there. Area market's about $2,000 a month.
For a commercial spot like
that square footage he had. And he's paying $6,000. So in that instance, all he told them was, oh, well, I was paying them $6,000 because they were remodeling it for me. And then I was going to lower it back down. Well, funny, lo and behold, the next month it was $3,000. So he's still paying his lawyer $3,000 a month rent on a property that's worth $2,000. And with the ethics committee, it's like, okay, I guess you didn't do nothing wrong. You explained it, we're good.
They just accept it.
Oh yeah. And there's another one, like one of the biggest things I put out when I first filed was, in 2019, I think it was, he spent $125,000 in the third quarter of 2019, I think it was, at the Hyatt Regency in Washington, D.C., out of his campaign money. Well, I put that in the filings, and when he got served, he went back and says, oh, that was just a mistake. He said, it was actually only $1,100 something. So he changed that to $1,100 something, but I never saw the money go back in. And the funny part is he spends more money on CPAs and accountants than every other congressman combined.
That's interesting.
Because he was paying his own Palazzo and Company. He's paying another guy up in Brazil and Jackson. And I think there was one other company he was paying. But he was paying like $38,000 for filing your FEC stuff. But I pay like $2,900 a year.
Yeah.
It's the easiest can be.
Yeah, shouldn't be that much.
No. But the funny part is you're paying all this money for CPAs and stuff. And in the third quarter, you're off $100,000. And you're a CPA, and your other CPAs, they don't catch that in your third quarter reconciliation. And does it stand out that you've got $100,000 lost somewhere? And then at the fourth quarter, they didn't catch it then either. Year in, they didn't catch it. And $100,000 stands out when you only bring in, I think that year he brought in like $600,000. You're talking about a sixth of your money. You didn't even recognize it gone.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he found out about it in February when they filed against him. That was the first he knew about it. So it's gone through all your reconciliation and stuff, and you never knew about it. And you're a CPA. Your CPA's,
if you're going to you're going to be paying that much money, they should be able to catch it.
And yet you never caught that.
Interesting.
So that's why I say, I don't dislike him. I just think that, if he was half decent, he'd resign. Mm-hmm. I mean, just say I'm not going to run again. Give somebody else an opportunity. I carry around his term limit bill. It's a 2-page term limit bill. Same thing. He drops it in the hamper every now and then. So he can say he's for term limits. Well, it's for 12 years. Well, he's working on his 14th now. So evidently he doesn't even believe in this term limit bill. It's like, well, no, term limits for thee, but not for me. Mm-hmm. So that, and then I also carry around a pledge that he signed. And
what's that pledge?
It was stuff he was going to do when he got to Congress that he was going to abide by. It's a whole long list. I never would sign it. Mm-hmm. I would never sign something like that because there's stuff in there you got no clue on. One of the things that he said he was going to do is read every word of every bill before he voted on it.
That would mean either you're voting either no or present on literally everything.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So how many bills do you think he probably read? 0. I mean, these bills are this tall. Yeah. That's why I say we need single issue bills.
Sure. Yeah.
But why would you sign something like that? And there's a whole bunch of other ones. I'm going to take and get rid of unconstitutional laws. Do you see him bring anything up in 12 years that, hey, let's take down this unconstitutional law?
Man, I'd love that he signed that. I'd love to start. I mean, where do we start? I got a list.
Wow. That's what I mean, but there's like 20 of those things there.
Wow.
And I'll be willing to bet out of 20, he might have done one of them.
Yeah.
And again, the guys that got him to sign it, they told me they went up a year later and they had that in their hand and said, hey, you're not doing this. And he just said he pushed it back across the desk and said, that don't work up here. So again, then that just goes to show what honor you have. I mean, you signed it. At least give them an explanation like, I tried that, it won't work or something, but, why would you sign something in the first place? Mm-hmm. I mean, I got people that want me to sign term limit bills, and they'll support my campaign. I could post stuff about the term limits, but I don't agree with the term limit bill they want to pass. Mm-hmm. I think it's Term Limit USA wants, it's not that I don't agree with it. Mm-hmm. I think I know a better way to get it done.
Which is fair.
Right. I mean, I believe in the Contract with America 1994 term limit bill. Mm-hmm. It's a great bill. You should be able to get everybody on board on it. I can't imagine. My idea, if I get there, I'll go sit down with every congressman and woman and say, look, how can we get there from here?
Yeah.
The bill is a simple one. It's 12 years in Congress, 12 years in the Senate, and it doesn't come into effect for 12 years. So, again...
It gives people opportunity to get in and get out or whatever.
It gives you 24 more years. Mm-hmm. How can you not be for that? Wow. Do you want to stay more than 24 years? Or actually, it would give you 36 if you want to go 12 years in the Senate. In the Senate, you'd be here 36 years. Wow. But just think, if you sign on to the bill, you'll go down in history as the one that helped pass this bill. Mm-hmm. So again, I can't understand, and my job is negotiating. I do that all over the world. Mm-hmm. I negotiate contracts, hundreds of millions of dollars a year. I sit down with people that don't even like me, and I hammer out a deal. Mm-hmm. So again, sitting down with Republicans and Democrats, I got no problem. I mean, I can negotiate with anybody, and I have. Good. So again, that's why I say I don't see how you can't get that passed.
Absolutely.
But you have to actually want it, though. And I've already committed to the fact that 12 years is all I'm going to do at the max if I get elected.
Good.
I don't think I make it 12 years because.
Well, I appreciate you coming and talking with me. Is there last thing? Is there any social media, any handles or website that people can reach you at?
Well, carl4congress.com is my website. It's number 4 in the center, and of course, Carl for Congress for Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
You're on TikTok? Good.
Yeah, same thing. Everybody's, you're on TikTok? Yeah, I got a guy that works for me that's 24 years old. Well, you got to be on TikTok. Mm-hmm. And then when I make TikTok videos, they make fun of me.
Well, it's join the club. Join the club. Bye. So, well, I appreciate it, and good luck on your campaign.
No problem. Thank you, and I'm glad you didn't ask the question about Bitcoin.
Yeah.